Rest in the Lord. Wait patiently for Him to act. Don't fret and worry. It only leads to harm. Psalm 37, 7-8. It's frustrating when you're in a hurry and God isn't. And God is never in a hurry. The Bible says a day is equal to 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are equal to a day to God. Trying to speed up God is one of the most pointless efforts. We get into trouble when we try to take matters into our own hands. Proverbs 19:2 says, "Impatience will get you into trouble." When you get a dream from God and decide to pursue it, but then forced to wait in God's waiting room, you may begin to try to figure out ways to fulfill God's dream on your own without His assistance. But the Bible says to trust God's timing. Rest in the Lord. Wait patiently for Him to act. Don't fret and worry. It only leads to harm. Resting can be an act of faith. It means you're waiting on God. One day, Jesus and His disciples were in a boat caught in a fierce storm. According to the Bible, the boat was being flooded, and they were in serious danger. While the disciples were worried, Jesus rested His head on a cushion and slept through the storm. "Don't you care if we drown?" The disciples awoke Him. "Help us." "Do you think God is going to let the boat sink with me in it?" Jesus would say. Instead, Jesus explained about the need for greater faith before calming the storm. The disciples were concerned about the wind and the seas, and Jesus demonstrated to them that He had power over the wind, the waves, and any storms they would experience in life. When we are in a storm, we tend to stress and worry like the disciples. In this way of life, we are not living by faith. We are focused on the winds and waves rather than on the power and love of Jesus. Jesus is always with you, and you can always rely on His timing. Worry simply makes you unhappy. Stop stressing about being late for your dream and start trusting God to work in and through you. Why do we feel guilty so often while we rest? What do you believe God is trying to teach you through the delay? What have you learned about yourself and God as a result of a purposeful delay? What is one thing you can modify about your schedule or expectations so that you don't feel tempted to rush God in this phase of your faith? Our dreams are delayed. We forget what God has done in our lives and His past goodness. We lose sight of the fact that God is with us. We forget God's power, which He uses to make our dreams come true. In the wilderness, the Israelites made the same mistake. They forgot the many times God showed them His love, and they rebelled against the Almighty at the Red Sea. But He saved them, as He had promised, in order to show His great power. But they quickly forgot what He had done and acted without waiting for His advice. It's amazing how short their memory was. God sent 10 plagues on the Egyptians simply to save His people. But just days later, at the Red Sea, The children of Israel forgot about God's actions, shouting, "We're all going to die." They had forgotten what God had done for them. Then, miraculously, God parted the Red Sea, allowing them to cross on dry ground. But they forgot about it just a few days later when they believed they would die from thirst. Then, amazingly, God gave water in the desert, but they forgot about it just a few days later when they feared they were going to die of starvation. They kept forgetting what God had done for them. But we shouldn't pass judgment on them too quickly because we do the exact same thing. When there is a delay in our lives, we begin to act as if God has never done anything for us. Has God ever done anything for you? He certainly has. And you can expect Him to do even more for you tomorrow, the next day, and the day after that. Instead of forgetting, keep God's promises in mind. The Bible contains about 7,000 of them. When you have a dilemma, remember a promise like 2 Timothy 2:13. Even when we are too weak to have any faith left, He remains faithful to us and will help us, and He will always carry out His promises to us. God's promises are always greater than your worries. If God has not fulfilled a promise in your life, it is possible that He is waiting on you. He's waiting for you to learn not to fear, fret, faint, or forget. He wants to mold you before delivering you. God could do things immediately, but He has a greater plan in mind. The setbacks in your life do not slow down God's purpose. They fulfill God's purpose in your life. What has God done for you to demonstrate His faithfulness? How has God refined you during the waiting phase of your dream? What attitude changes can you make when you spend time in God's waiting room?